To my wonderful readers, thank you for your continuous support and love and motivation. This journey has been an incredible experience, and I couldn't have done it without all of you. While writing this book, there was not a moment I did not think about you all. The thoughts of how much emotions I put you through and what things you'd cry, laugh, and be angry with me about before you closed the book. My mission is to share what chasing dreams are all about in a new age romance that will bring you on a heart-wrenching, emotional roller coaster you'll never forget. I can't wait to hear what you love about Dual Destiny and excitedly look forward to meeting you all. Prologue. Shoot them, all of them, a booming voice commanded. The horrid screams of women and children rumbled through my ears, sharpening my senses. Men pleaded desperately for their lives, but were still ruthlessly stabbed to death by blades tearing through their innocent flesh. The air was quickly polluted by the fire of burning bamboo homes. Breathing became harsh from all the smoke as beads of hot sweat trickled down my neck. My legs couldn't stop running. I glanced behind me, and following was a woman who looked to be in her 20s, carrying her child on her back, her eyes bulged in fear of death. "Let me help you." I stopped quickly, noticing her child was about to fall off. In an effort to grab the infant, I released the cloth strap. A loud gunshot fired at us. It was like time came to an immediate stop as I witnessed the mother's eyes rolled back. Dark blood came pouring from her mouth and splattered all over me. The wailing voice from the infant instantly turned into cold silence. My heart cried in pain, and tears came gushing from my eyes at the sight of the lifeless mother and infant in my arms, my hands a crimson red. A soldier shouted and pointed at me. "Don't let that one get away!" Panic ate through my veins as I tried to pull myself free from the body, knowing the soldiers would now be after me. Sharp metal zinged past my ears, barely missing me, followed by a bullet that grazed the flesh of my left leg. I fell to the ground with a hard thud. Overwhelmed with exhaustion, there was no energy left in me. I couldn't move. Was this the end of me? Su-Le Chang, I asked myself in quietness, gritting my teeth. Fear filled my heart at the thought of death. Scorching pain surfaced from my wound in waves of agony. The scene of heavy military boots marching in my direction faded when my consciousness became overwhelmed by darkness. Chapter 1. A Nightmare Escape. "Wake up! Wake up!" A faint voice echoed through my ears. As my eyes opened, goosebumps crawled all over my arms. My heart was beating faster than usual. Even the hairs on my skin rose. "It's cold," I thought. "Are you okay?" A young woman's voice called out to me. "Come on, we have to keep moving or they will find us." Her voice urged in fright. I refocused my attention, feeling pine needles poke in my back. My cotton navy pajamas were soaked in muddy water and coated in leaves. The pearl half-moon glared down through the dark, shadowy trees, towering beneath the soaking night. "My head, it hurts," was the only thing I could mutter. A skinny woman who looked in her 50s, with a blue and striped pink cloth wrap around her head and squinty eyes, answered, "Are you able to stand? Here, let us help you now. We can't just leave you behind. We've come this far." The woman and another girl with short hair beside her grabbed me by both arms and carefully raised me up. "One of your legs has been injured, so you have to bear the pain until we get to our destination." And then the horrific memories of noon suddenly came sinking in, and my stomach churned. I vomited harshly as I remembered the smell of villagers burning flesh and innocent lives being slaughtered by the communist. The tears in my eyes continued to well. The trauma in my mind screamed even louder than the pain in my legs. I kept on walking and wondered how I survived. We set off without another thought. A group of 5 men, 6 children, and 4 women trailed behind us. A few hours later, we finally saw rays of sunlight beaming through the tall, thin layers of trees. It's morning, finally. It was a long night. Let's rest here. We should be safe for at least a day or 2. We must do our best to make it to the Mekong River. That is where your freedom is, my Hmong brothers and sisters. A man spoke from the front of the crowd as he tossed his head to the sky, hands resting at his hips. Shortly afterwards, he turned around with a big smile and put a cigar to the tip of his lips. His curly brown and gray hair looked as if it hadn't been washed for days, but to my surprise, he had rosy cheeks, like a chubby child who just finished stuffing himself. His eyes were almond-shaped and very black. Creepy black, it could be said. That's Captain Blanc Chang. He's in charge of this group and has helped many Hmong survivors of the war cross to Thailand. The old lady with the blue and pink hair wrap whispered and beamed. My eyes switched from her back to Captain Blanc Chang. As he walked through the crowd of travelers, his gaze caught mine. I looked away, not wanting to be noticed. "How old are you?" was the first thing he asked. His heavy boots stopped with a thud. The greenery of his camouflage attire came to view. My guard was up, feeling wary. I muttered through an unwavering stare. "I'm 20, sir." He reached out with an open palm, and his hand settled on top of my head. He stroked through the threads of my dark black hair that still had dried clumps of mud in them. Given a split moment to observe this man, he seemed to be in a rather good mood, considering an entire village had just been hunted and burned. There was no sympathy in his eyes. I glared more as he patted my cheek. "Those hazel eyes are too harsh on me. You're still young and vulnerable," teased Captain Blanc Chang. At the point I knew he was wanting to slide his filthy hands down my neck, I pulled away. "I'm tired. I want to rest," I said in a weak, breathless voice. Being hungry and dehydrated felt awful, made worse by fearing that this man was not to be trusted. The afternoon came with a warm breeze as I sat surveying the mountains where we were traveling through. "Child, what is your name, and which village are you from? We were passing by and found you unconscious in the woods. Luckily, you were still breathing, so we tended to your wound. That was when you finally woke up." Hesitantly, I tried smiling. "My name is Sulia, and I am a Chang. I'm unsure where I came from, to be honest." It was the only answer I had, no matter how hard I tried to remember more. "Well then, you can call me Aunt Chu. Our family name is Vang. We had a peaceful village." She began to sob, and my heart sank. "I lost my husband, and now it's only my daughter and me. Her name is Ia, and she is the same age as you. You should stay with us, and we'll figure out where your family is when we get to Thailand." Choked suddenly, tears streamed down my face. "Thank you for saving me." I wiped my tears away and then hers. "Don't cry. Your husband must still be protecting you, for you have survived this long." I tucked my black hair behind my ears and realized a shadow hovering over me. It was Captain Blanc Chang. When I turned to look, he smiled with hands behind his back as if he was eavesdropping on our conversation. "It's time to leave," he urged with empty eyes, and we both stood up quickly and gathered our belongings. "We are only hours away from reaching our location. There," Captain Blanc Chang said, pointing east to where we could see the free-flowing water of Mekong River. "Our supporters and comrades will be waiting to get you on boats. We will get there this evening, so let's keep moving." He picked up a branch lying on the ground and began using it as a walking stick while whistling. The group was now heading downward towards the mountain trail. The crowd chanted with glee, and everyone seemed to have more energy now to continue the journey. Happiness crossed my face at seeing the Hmong survivors looking forward to their safety. "Finally, our freedom is only hours away!" One of the child, who looked 6 years of age, grabbed onto the skirt of his mother as she patted him on the head. "Yes, my son, you have to keep that spirit, even when we make it to Thailand and start our new life." The women and children talked about how they've been walking up and down the mountain trails and in and out of the woods to escape capture by the communists in Vietnam. The travelers also mentioned that there were some who lost their shoes and had walked on bare feet for days, and children who were exhausted and hungry after their food spoiled along the way. Worst of all, a group which had started with 30 or more people was now reduced to only 15 because of loved ones being killed or captured. It definitely felt relieving to know that the long, horrific road was finally coming to an end for them. I stopped for a moment to take a big breath as the fresh, airy scent of leaves, grass, and trees seeped through my nostrils. Nature has never felt so real, I thought. The night came quickly. The moon rose into its place in the midnight skies. The wind lessened, but didn't stop the night being colder than any other. Everyone was dressed thinly, and shivers from within surfaced quickly. "Where are the boats?" a scrawny man called out when he stopped to survey the destination. The men walked in different directions to try to see if the boats were coming. The night was not only cold, but a little too quiet. The children began to whine, and even the younger ones carried on their mother's back began to cry. "Shh! You can't cry, or we will be heard," one of the mothers said, trying to calm her 2-year-old toddler. "The boats will arrive soon. Don't worry. We are still waiting on another group that is expected to arrive soon," said Captain Blancpain. A moment later, we heard crackling twigs and rustling leaves, signaling footsteps. From afar, I saw a much smaller group than ours emerging from the shadows. The first person I noticed was a boy, or rather a young man, in his 20s, walking alongside a few other men. He carried a black backpack of his belongings, and no women were in his group. It almost seemed they had traveled as a unit on their own instead of being participants in a large party. As they made their way closer from the dark jungle, for some reason, he looked familiar, but I couldn't make out from where and when I might have met him. Before long, the man was standing right next to me. He was quite tall, about 5'11", with a muscular build and broad shoulders that towered over me. The man didn't quite notice me to begin with and was paying attention to instructions for when the boats would arrive. The other group members stood in the shadows, preventing me from making out what they looked like. Observing and hoping to not be noticed, I couldn't help but gaze. Deep brown hair curtained down the sides of his smooth beige complexion. It wasn't too long or too short, but touched the nape of his strong neck. He wore a fitted black top with the sleeves cut off, which presented masculine biceps and firm arms. The shirt was tucked neatly inside his loose, black satin trousers and a deep red sash belt. Minutes passed, and just as I was enjoying the perfect still of his mesmerizing figure, he turned my direction. Dark, chestnut eyes stared down at me. Too late to look away now. My heart fluttered for a moment, unsure if I was embarrassed for being caught staring or stunned at how strikingly handsome he was. His dark eyebrows narrowed as he observed me with intrigued eyes for countless seconds. That face, where have I seen him before? "Look, the boats are coming," a different man shouted, pointing towards the river, breaking our gaze. Quickly, I blinked away my previous thoughts, and while still being wary of the young man's presence behind me, I stepped ahead to observe the river. Staring at the ground before me, I saw his shadow overlapping mine composedly. We watched as one of our group ran towards the boat. A split second later, the situation changed. "It's the communists!" the man shouted loudly, turning on his heels. "Run! Save yourself!" the group member immediately shouted as loud as he could when he noticed the boats arriving were soldiers piloting their machine guns. The entire crowd of travelers screamed at once and scattered for their lives from the riverbank and back to the jungle. Machine gun fire opened up, with those slowest to flee were the first to fall. The armed soldiers jumped from their boats and charged towards anyone they saw. "Spare my child's life, please," the woman with the 6-year-old child begged, cradling him protectively. The soldiers' faces were devoid of emotions. They were clearly on a mission to eliminate anyone in their way, especially the Hmong. I turned around in an instant, covering my ears, when I heard the woman and her child being shot ruthlessly. My heart screamed for the bodies that were falling like dominoes, thinking any minute those bullets would kill me too. Then I remembered and frantically searched for Captain Blanc Chang. None of the bodies lying on the ground, soaked in crimson, were him. Then a glance up, he was standing behind the soldiers with a cigar. A grim smile slowly formed. He had deceived us and betrayed his people. A traitor! My rounded pupils shook in terror. No one can be trusted. "I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna die," I prayed while machine guns continued to roar around me. Overwhelmed in agonizing horror, I pressed hard against my ears. My temples throbbed, feeling like my mind was already gone. Within a moment, a large hand grasped me by the shoulders and flung me to the ground. One side of my face hit the cold dirt, causing a burning sensation from the impact. It was him, his firm chest laid against my back as he clung onto me, using his entire body to shield me from flying bullets. "Shh! Don't cry. Not a breath can be heard or you'll die," he hissed sharply against my ear. As soon as the soldiers started heading in a different direction, presumably thinking they had killed everyone, he hurriedly helped me up, and we took off as fast as we could back through the jungle. It was a very dark night, making it a struggle to see any direction, but the man seemed to maneuver fluidly through the undergrowth like he knew the area. I remained as calm as I could, despite my face being drenched in tears. Witnessing the bloodbath of so many people being shot down has stirred my intestines. I fought extremely hard to not throw up at the horror of it all. After a while, the pain in my legs became too unbearable. The bullet cut across my thigh, which had started to heal, began bleeding again. Wait, I said, my limbs so bad now, I was forced to grab the nearest tree for support. The man stopped to observe me. He seemed to understand the problem right away, without me having to explain. He tossed my right arm over one of his shoulders and fastened a good grip around my waist. With his support, we kept on moving. "Thank you," I gasped in gratefulness. "Will they find us?" I added worriedly. "You're safe. I know these trails well, and I'll make sure to get you to the right location where the rowboats are waiting," he assured. I wanted to ask more questions, but knew it wasn't the time to get chatty on such a dangerous night. Before long, we came to a stop, somewhere that seemed safe enough to allow me to sit down and rest. Gathering dry twigs, branches, and leaves, he was able to start a fire with matches he pulled from his backpack. He also brought out a bottle of water and a small first aid kit. The man's calmness never ceased to amaze me, and I wondered how he could remain so composed in such a traumatic situation. I watched as he walked over to me from the other side of the fire pit. "Use this," he said, handing me the water. "Drink and clean yourself up." Embarrassed, I touched my face and felt the rough, gritty sand against my skin. Even my hair felt nappy. The man tossed me a small brownish towel after I rinsed out the mud clumps in my hair and refreshed myself. He crouched down across from me, elbows propped on his knees, and raised one hand towards my face. I flinched, startled by the sudden gesture, but it didn't stop him from reaching. He gazed with remorseful eyes and brushed his thumb across my cheekbone. "Does it hurt?" he asked in a worried tone, like he didn't wish to cause me further harm. No, was all that came out of my mouth. Those all too gentle eyes drowned me in silence. It did hurt at first, but I had forgotten already. My gratitude and debt to him masked any remaining pain. Afterwards, he proceeded to undress the cloth around my leg and inspected the condition of my wound. It's good, just a small opening from running. This cloth is dirty and could cause you an infection, so I'm going to leave it uncovered. Letting it breathe will help it heal faster, he told me. I squinted from the stinging pain as he applied alcohol to cleanse the raw-feeling flesh. May I please know your name? I bravely summoned the courage to ask. He paused for a moment like I was asking a silly question and brought his eyes to meet mine. Ying Shua. Family name is Pa. Ying Shua, Pa. I whispered, staring off into nothing. Where does my heart remember this name? A voice inside of me asked. Thank you. My name is Sulia Chang. I offered, even though he didn't ask. Ying Shua looked up but didn't seem surprised. Maybe he just didn't care to know my name. Then a curious thought came to mind. So, if you knew where the boats were, how did you and your men end up with our crowd? We are advocates for the peace of our people. It's our mission to ensure the Hmongs can safely cross to Thailand. Also, because you were there, I got distracted. Distracted? Have we met before? I questioned in a calm manner, feeling that sense of familiarity lurking inside of me. I just couldn't figure it out or remember why. No, this may be the first and the last time. He stared down at the ground like he was disappointed. Without more to say, I didn't probe any further, in case it made him feel uncomfortable. I understood he was a man of minimal words. After a few minutes, the hunger in my body stirred. Starvation was a real threat. I hadn't eaten for almost 2 whole days. I pushed both my inner wrists into my belly. It was the way Mother taught me to prevent my stomach growling. Ying Shua must have noticed, because he stood up to go and dig into his backpack once more. Eat this, you don't look well. He handed me 3 strips of beef jerky and some crackers. Is there enough for you too? I didn't forget to ask. I had no idea when I even started caring for this stranger. This is the last of it, but I'm not hungry, he assured, and looked away like he was shy. I accepted the food and ate slowly after thanking him. Then Ying Shua glowered like he heard something. My gaze raised to follow when he stood to listen. Stay here, I'll be right back. Ying Shua walked away, his back towards me, as I waited, hoping everything was alright. After a while, my eyes began to feel fuzzy and tired. The orange glow from the fire pit began to zone out. My vision became less vivid. Even my consciousness was leaving my body. I was so happy to be alive. Despite the trauma and bitterness I had suffered, somehow I felt safe with him, Ying Shua Pa.